I'm Caroline Mitchell, former detective and crime thriller author, and today I'm bringing you a case that sounds like it's come straight out of the pages of one of my crime novels. We are talking stalkers, OnlyFans, and an out-of-control obsession that will have you checking your loft hatch before you go to sleep every night. So buckle up as we break down the case of Mauricio Guerrero. So first we'll start with what happened, then I'll give you my opinion on the case. I specialised in dealing with stalkers when I was a police detective, so you should find this interesting. We go to Somersworth, New Hampshire. It's a small city in Stafford County, tucked into the southeast corner of New Hampshire, not far from the Maine border. And I don't know about you, but there's something about Maine that gives me Stephen King vibes. Somersworth has a population of around 12,000 people, so it's small enough that people become familiar to you, but large enough that people don't know each other's business. It's a working class New England town. People here commute, they raise families, walk their dogs in the evening, and lock their doors more out of habit than concern. It was the home of an OnlyFans creator said to be named Rachel, with an OnlyFans name of Isabella. It said she was around 24 years old at the time, although her full details weren't stated in court, where she was referred to as NH, but for the purposes of storytelling, we'll call her Rachel for now. Mauricio was born on the 7th of March 2001, which would make him about 20 years old when the crime occurred. Now, what's striking in this case is how little publicly is known about Guerrero beyond the crime itself. No school history or work background, there's no confirmed social media accounts publicly linking him, and no images outside of journalistic reports. But his mother did speak very briefly about him, saying that she had tried to raise her son with respect and love, and a therapist who worked with him described him as very immature and lonely. In 2001, he lived in Salem, Pennsylvania, and he first came into contact with Rachel through the online platform called OnlyFans. Now, most people have heard of this platform, but just to explain, it's a site where content creators can post adult pictures, videos, and even engage in one-to-ones with paying customers. That's my knowledge of the site, so we're going to move on from that. Oh, by the way, do you enjoy human police and case insights? If you're not subscribed, you might miss out on my next video, and it doesn't cost you a thing, and clicking the bell will ensure that you hear about the next one. So as we said, Rachel lived in New Hampshire. She had a young son and her own apartment, but at some point she did move back in with her mum later on. We don't know a lot about Rachel as there aren't any pictures of her online or any social media accounts that we know of, but she was a young brunette-haired woman, judging by the photographic images later shown in court. Mauricio was a paying customer of Rachel's, and his obsession with her soon grew. It wasn't entirely one-sided, as would later come out in court, but Rachel did state that at no time did she tell Mauricio to break into her home. Mauricio was socially awkward. He didn't have a girlfriend and turned to OnlyFans to fill the need. But it wasn't just about sex. It was about filling the gap of loneliness. So combine that with raging hormones, too much time on his hands, and a lot of naivety, and you have the perfect storm on your hands. Now, I used to safeguard victims of high-risk stalking and domestic abuse in the police. And by high risk, I mean the people who are most likely to be murdered should things continue in that vein. But most of the time, if people took our advice and cooperated with safeguarding, then this risk level would be brought down dramatically. The problem with this situation is that Rachel was very hot and cold when it came to Mauricio, and didn't behave sensibly at all. Although they met online, Rachel gave him her old apartment address because she wanted him to buy her gifts, such as a new TV and a fireplace. Now, I'm not sure where Mauricio was getting the money for these gifts because he was just 20 years old, but he did spend a lot of money on her. This wasn't a business transaction for Mauricio though. Strong feelings were involved. So he wasn't content with just sexting online. He drove to the address uninvited. Rachel later stated that she saw him ducking down in his car, and another time she looked out the window to see him standing there. Now, this is where things get worse because she didn't tell him to go away when she saw her stalker. She invited him inside. and it said he stayed for around 2 hours before she then asked him to leave. But then Mauricio would later state that Rachel performed oral sex on him afterwards in his truck. So it was like he was being rewarded for his bad behaviour. And their relationship continued, but Rachel moved back home with her mother at some point. So the address Mauricio had was no longer current, but it didn't stop him. He found a new address, and Rachel lost her keys at one point, and it said she looked everywhere for them, and later they mysteriously reappeared in the place where they'd gone missing from. Mauricio had actually used a crowbar to break in and make a copy for himself, and this isn't at all unusual. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people who leave their house keys under a rock or a plant pot outside their home. Please don't do this. Get a key safe on the wall if you must leave a key outside. But unknown to Rachel, he was breaking into her home and taking her personal things such as her underwear and photos and going through her drawers and everything else. However, they did continue to meet as well, and he bought a tracking device which he had planned to plant on Rachel and record her every movement too. In December 2021, Rachel told Mauricio that she loved him, and this, along with their long discussions about sex, fantasies and romance, well, it only fueled him on. Consumed with his obsession, he made another trip to New Hampshire, and that's where she told him not to visit her anymore. But not long after, she contacted him again, saying that she missed him and she wanted him back. She even told him that she found his stalking hot. Mauricio tried to break off the relationship, but she just kept re-engaging with him, saying that she was enjoying messing with his head and wanted him to be obsessed with her. The couple's sexual encounter was something that Rachel would later deny to the police, but then she was forced to admit the truth. Now, I spoke about stalking earlier, and de-escalating really is the best way of bringing a high risk down. The fact that this couple had a sexual encounter after he turned up at her address would only spur him on. It was like he was being rewarded, as I said, and he probably saw this as some kind of warped love affair, and the kind that he might have even read about in books. But to Rachel, Mauricio was a cash cow and nothing more. She noticed odd things happening in her home though, like back doors being left unopened and a downstairs window being opened when she was sure that it had been closed. She strung him along to get as much money as she could out of him, and that's fine if you know you're getting into a business transaction, but Mauricio is being led by his emotions, among other things. Let's just say his brain wasn't even part of the conversation at this point, which is why the first thing we recommend to victims of stalking was to totally blank the person causing them issues. Because if you don't respond, you're not feeding them the drama they need to keep going, even if you're telling them to get lost. And I'd say 7 out of 10 times in high-risk cases, just blanking these people worked. No texts, no messaging online. In fact, get rid of your social media and change your phone number, because no responses whatsoever. But also keep a diary of every interaction with the person who is stalking you. Most of the times that person then gets bored and they'll move on. Had Rachel done this, I think it would have ended there, because what happened next was so much worse. I'm not victim blaming, because let's face it, nobody deserves to have their home broken into, much less have someone watching them night after night from their loft, because that's exactly what happened next. On the 9th of February 2022, Rachel's mum Victoria called the police in the Somersworth Police Department in the early hours of the morning, saying that she was there with her daughter and her daughter's young son, and that they believed they had an intruder. She said that someone was on the roof of the house and they said it was her daughter's stalker. Well, police responded, and Rachel told them that she woke up with a fright as she saw a figure in her doorway. And at first she thought it might be her mum, but then she kind of blinked, slowly waking up, watching the figure walk down the hall. And then they went up into the attic. And I can't imagine how terrifying that would be, because then she heard the heavy footsteps in the attic above her. And it's so creepy to think of someone being in your home as you sleep, because you're in such a vulnerable position. And it's a scene I've written about more than once in my crime thriller novels, because it really gets under people's skin. Police must have been quick coming out though, and it sounds like she had a great response as they found Mauricio standing on a flat part of the roof outside her home. He was arrested straight away. Mauricio told police that he was there to retrieve the television he'd previously bought for Rachel, but then he heard voices, so he panicked and went into the loft. Of course, this was an out-and-out lie. He was charged with burglary and his phone was seized. And let me tell you, you wouldn't believe the things that police find on seized phones. It's the small advances in technology that used to help our jobs so much. Because when I started working in the police, iPhones were very, very new and not everyone had one. Most people had the old style Nokia phones that were used for really making calls and little else. But the onset of social media has brought so much extra work to the lives of police officers too. And of course stalkers, they love a good tracking device which can now be uploaded to anyone's phone. Anyway, here's what the police found. In the loft, they discovered several things belonging to Mauricio, which was a bit of a giveaway that this was not a once-off event. There was fast food bags and cups, and it smelled strongly of urine, and they found AirPods and the tracking device that he'd planned to use. Mauricio was interviewed by police and he said that he'd driven to Somersworth on the 8th of February and broke into the house, but then he left to meet up with her the same day. They then drove to a store in his pickup truck, and that's when he then broke back into the house at around 2 in the morning when Rachel was asleep. He then crept to her bedroom and recorded her on his phone. I mean, this was bad enough, but the woman slept naked and he pulled up the blankets to get everything he needed on his phone. And he later lied about the amount of times that he'd broken into her home, despite all of the evidence the police had found and the cell phone evidence placing him there, which included photos of her room and belongings and the cell tower evidence which pinged, so they knew exactly where he was. The thing is, her young son was in that house too, and you have to wonder what could have happened had he woken up. The case went to court, and Mauricio's attorney asked the judge for leniency and a suspended sentence with probation, saying that his client believed the victim was his first girlfriend. Mauricio's mother spoke with his aunt acting as translator in defence of her son. And Mauricio stood then and addressed the court, offering an apology to the victim and her family. He said, "I caused a lot of pain to them and it hurts me a lot. I regret everything. I'm sorry. I can't say that anymore. I'm scared. I'm scared of being alone and what will happen to me after today. I'm really sorry to them, especially to the victim. I hope she can understand me. I hope she understands. I really mean that. I'm sorry. I feel so alone. I have my mum with me, but I've lost all of my friends. They don't talk to me. I don't talk to them for the past year and a half. People look at me, judge me. I'm sorry. I never wanted it to happen. I'll stay as far away as possible from her, and I'll have no contact with her at all or anyone in her family. I see what I've done and I'm disgusted by myself." He said he thought they were in a relationship and that she wanted to be stalked. Rachel acknowledged that she had messed with his head and sent mixed messages about the nature of their relationship, but she also stated she never invited him to break into her home. The jury heard text messages between both parties in the hours leading up to the morning of February 9th. Mauricio had a stalker to-do list on his phone that went like, lockpick her house, put microphones and stuff to hear her, and be careful and sneak around her house. Mauricio's defense said that Rachel led him on, including the time he drove hundreds of miles from Pennsylvania to her house unannounced. She sent him away without seeing him, but then texted him saying, "I miss you," and that him showing up was kinda hot. She also told him at one point that she wanted him to be obsessed with her and texted him me. But she said she didn't actually mean it. And sorry, I've had to blank out that bit because YouTube naturally doesn't like certain words. Rachel said she had very low self-esteem and mental health problems that led her to drink daily, which of course would lead to bad decision making. She said she was usually drunk when she spoke to him on the phone or texted him. Judge Mark Howard sentenced Mauricio to serve a total of 12 months in jail, as well as required him to participate meaningfully in counselling. He ruled that Mauricio would not have to register as a sex offender. So what's my opinion of this case? Well, this was some serious level of stalking that I think would have escalated, particularly given the mixed messages the young man was receiving. Talk of fantasies may have just been that, just talk for Rachel, but she was very naive when it came to protecting herself. When it comes to stalkers, they become increasingly possessive. All they can think about is that person, who they're with, what they're doing, and when they can see them again. And when they're fed a certain narrative, such as, leave me alone, oh, but I miss you, they will pick solely what they want to hear from that text. Even messages just like leave me alone or go away translates to, I'm passionate about you enough to keep replying to your texts. This is the power of wonky thinking. And there's a danger of replying to people like these who have been really going through some mental health challenges of their own. But it doesn't make it right. Nobody has the right to break into your home and rob you of your privacy. This was a dysfunctional relationship from which no good could come. Rachel used him for money, and Mauricio got lost in an obsession that could have ended up tearing their lives apart. I'm only glad he was stopped when he was. And I don't know if I sound more like a mum here or a former cop, but if you talk to people online, please don't give them your address. And if you do need to meet them in the flesh, meet in a public place if you must, and let someone you trust know where you are at all times. So what did you think about this case, and who did you think was to blame? Did Mauricio get off light, or did he get what he deserved? Please leave your comments below. It makes this more of a conversation. And if you'd like to know when my next video drops, don't forget to subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing, and you may end up learning something new. And on a personal note, my new book, The Ice Angels, is out in all good bookshops and in ebook and audio too. Well, I love you and leave you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments what you thought. Until next time, bye bye for now.